2020 action sci-fi film directed and written by our film king Christopher Nolan. Before I move on to the film itself, I'd like to give a little bit of context to the lead up to my watching of this film in theaters. So the last film I saw in theaters before the lockdown was Sonic the Hedgehog, and then nearing the end of the year, along with some of a few other people's short films, my short film Stickman, which you can see in my YouTube channel, it's like my second most popular video, was played at a theater, and so I went to watch that as well. But I had not really seen a proper blockbuster in the theaters in a while. So naturally, when I was going to watch Tenet, there was a fair bit of hype that was not even relevant to the film itself that I was looking forward to and had hyped up in my mind. Furthermore, Christopher Nolan has had a really good track record for his films, a lot of them winning major awards. Films he has made that you probably have heard of include Inception, Interstellar, Memento, The Dark Knight, its predecessor and its conclusion, Dunkirk, and The Prestige. These are all known to be pretty good films. So on my way to the theater, I looked up to the Rotten Tomatoes of the film Tenet, 71%. I was a little surprised, so I looked at the letterbox, an average of 3.6 stars. So I thought to myself, it'll be fine. They're probably just being really critical, as a lot of people are with acclaimed and established and decently famous directors. So before I begin everything I'm going to say about this film, 3 things. 1, if you hear mowing outside, I think my neighbor is mowing or something. Anyway, the other thing is, just because a director has made a bad film does not massively diminish their career. And 3, spoilers for Tenet are ahead. Alright, let's begin. So a film has to do at least 5 things. All stories as well must do this, because these are things that I learnt in grade 1. And that is who, what, when, where. So unconsciously, you notice all of these things in films. That is why no one really brings it up. It is basically just the bare minimum you have to do. Now let's take example of a film that I really admire, but no one really knows. Verse. Yeah, you guys have probably never heard of this film, but I saw it on Netflix Australia, and I think it's leaving Netflix this month, so I might as well bring it up as much as I can. Verse is about a young man searching for his birth mother, falls for a girl who introduces him to the rap battle scene in the process of doing this. Discovering he has a natural talent, he immerses himself in a world of angry words that threatens to consume him. Yes, I read that directly off Google, don't judge. Anyway, let's look at the who of Verse. The who in Verse is the main character in the film, the young man, Adam, who we know to be an angry boy, who has been jumping from foster home to foster home, and as the description said, lets it out through rap battling. Then we have Michaela, the love interest, who, although at first we seem to know all about, this quickly changes. Then we have the main villain, Slaughter, which I have to say in a really bad English accent because that's the only way I hear it, who struggles from some of the same issues as Adam, something represented and replicated in the posters and throughout the entire film. Now let's look at the who of Tenet. Okay, so upon viewing the film, I can only tell you the names for 1 or 2 characters, maybe. So throughout the film, I don't know the main character's name until I searched it up. His name is the protagonist. Wow, so original. Then there's the love interest, whose nickname or real name was, I think, maybe possibly Kat with a K. There was the villain, whose name was maybe Andre. And then Robert Pattinson, whose name I only knew due to the main character continuously saying it. I think it was Neil or O'Neill or something along those lines. Now, knowing the names of the characters is one thing, but who they actually are as people is a different thing. Now that's where it gets really difficult, because I could say a few words maximum on any of these characters. So the main character is Buff, likes to annoy Robert Pattinson by bringing up one of the worst movies in his career.
We live in a twilight world. We live in a twilight world.
Hope you get the reference. And can maybe sometimes be witty. Then we have Robert Pattinson's character, whose only memorable line was, "You have a future in the past," which is so unintentionally funny that during this maybe heartfelt scene, honestly, I can't tell what I was supposed to feel here. I burst out laughing in the theater. Then there's Kat. That's all I can say, really. And Andre, who is an arms dealer, but also not. I don't know. And that's it. Yep, that was confusing and not in a "I finally got it" way like in Interstellar. No, it's just annoying. Now let's look at the what in verse. So in verse, in verse, like the word, you get it. In verse, what is basically the concept? Now the concept, although simple, of verse is executed very well. Now I know the overall score of verse, besides the Rotten Tomatoes score, is seen as relatively low. I honestly don't really get it. Like, I know the budget can be used as a really bad excuse from time to time, but even then, with the budget they had, the movie that was made was really good. Anyway, we're getting besides the point. So the concept is simple. A boy lets out his frustration not through physical aggression, but instead wordy knowledge. This leads to his fiesta of why do I have the word accidental in my script? It leads to his final battle with Slaughter, who becomes his main enemy, of whom he must fight in the final battle. A lot of the descriptions for this film have also been calling it as an urban rights tale, as there is a twist of sorts which becomes a main plot regarding the so-called love interest. By the idea of a love interest that is represented in Tenet is different in verse, because the character in verse is not a damsel in distress, who, although I admit does do stuff in Tenet, nothing too spectacular. Michaela, who is the love interest in verse, however, handles the entirety of the project battle, which they use to, battle. And I hate to say this in the way that it has been overused and popularized into a meme, but, I'm gonna get some serious slack for this. But she is an independent woman. Now, let's look at the what in Tenet. This movie executes its incredibly convoluted premise so excruciatingly that the only way I could give you a shred of the idea of this film without sounding like the hobo you see under the bridge on your way to work every day, I would have to go to Google and search up its premise. But first, let's go with the hobo meaning. From what I picked up, this movie is about a guy who needs to stop World War III, and I think also time's reversed, but only the first half of the movie, which is, by the way, 2.5 hours long. Are you kidding me? And in the process, he's given a word, Tenet, and does stuff with the word. I couldn't even hear the word Tenet over the incredibly large, blaring sound coming through the speakers. Then, in order to stop the future from wreaking havoc on the past, they create the most intense game of capture the flag ever in the final scene. Also, I don't understand a lot of things that happened in this movie. There's an arms dealer who is protective, and a love interest who has a child, and the child is important because of, I don't really know, but stuff, I guess, and that's all I can say. 50% of that was really just me rambling. Now, I know what I'm trying to do here. I'm discussing verse in a more serious tone with no uhs and ums. So credit where credit is due. This very scene in Tenet looks good. But that's all I can say about the scene. And bad stuff where bad stuff is due. Versus plot has been seen before. 8 Mile, basically, is just another version of this said plot. But it is different in ways that, honestly, 8 Mile can't compare. Now let's move on to the when. In verse, this can be covered fairly quickly. Basically, the movie just takes place around these times. At one point, Adam opens up a scrapbook he was forced to make, and it shows times from when he was younger. But that's about all the so-called time travel, which it doesn't really do, but it does. It's not a period piece, which I'm so glad about, because not gonna lie, I'm kinda sick of them. However, Tenet takes place partially in the future, and also now, and also in the past. Now, if done right, this would have made sense. But it was not, and only after reading numerous attempts at slight explanations that kind of cracks the film's hollow surface, I could begin to understand its self-indulgent premise. But the thing was, if you get to the point in which you have to search up the explanation for a film in order to understand it, the film has already failed. Now, this might have possibly been due to my idiotic non-understanding of the film. But I think Jolly Olensinski summarized it the best. Even for the vaunted director of Inception and Memento, Tenet is heady stuff. Trying to understand the story can make you feel like you're sitting on a stool in a dunce's cap. And yeah, I can't agree with that more. Now, since I have virtually nothing else to say about this convoluted and confusing mess of time travel, let's move on to the where. In verse, the entirety of the movie takes place in the area in the United Kingdom of Southend. That's legitimately it. Now let's move on to the where of Tenet. Now, this was an interesting point of the movie, as from before I watched it, I heard a lot of talk about it taking place around multiple areas of the globe. And even after watching it, I'm still not sure why. Maybe at some point of the film it had discussed it, but even then it had not made it vocal enough for me to understand this key focal point of the film. But you could then say it was not key, so then why did they do it? If we look at the film Spider-Man 3, I know, weird comparison, one of the major reasons it was so bad was due to its overuse of villains. In special cases, a lot of villains and a huge rogues gallery used in one space could be good. But too much of something and not handled well isn't great, and it is perfectly exemplified in Tenet. So the places they go in Tenet include Estonia, Italy, India, Norway, Denmark, California, and London. Why though? I mean, sure, Let's move on to the last one. Why? Why are the events in the film happening? In verse, Adam is moved to a home in Southend. He goes to an arcade to release some Broden. Why do I keep messing up these words? I'm too far in. I am not going back. To release some boredom, meets Michaela and starts rap battling. Why do I keep saying that in a British accent? He clearly has a liking for Michaela, so when he sees that the character of Slaughter, which again I'm saying in that weird British accent, is nearing her, a rivalry between Adam and him begins, leading to the events that occur inside of the film. Simple premise, great execution. However, with Tenet, it's the exact opposite. Confusing premise, bad execution. And I know this video is bad execution, basically, but I know what I was really gonna say is that it's ahead of its times. That's what you can say about Tenet. It was ahead of its time. It's a modern classic, and in 5 years we will look at the errors of my ways and see how idiotic we were to question its validity. But call me in 5 years when Christopher Nolan released 2 movies after Tenet and everyone forgot about it, instead questioning those new movies as the cycle ever repeats. So, really, why? Why would I try to taunt Tenet for being Tenet, and I'm avidly reinforcing the psychoticness of this cycle that I myself am participating in? Why would I, as previously stated, participate in it? There is no need. But what is this one video in the ever-advancing landscape of snowplow videos that continue to go through YouTube in this genre alone, taunting Tenet alone, not even comparing to the rest? It is incomprehensible, and it is very minor. It's so unnecessary, it does nothing. There is an ever-increasing amount of these videos that I am making, so why is my one video different in questioning Tenet's validity as a good and or bad film? Who am I to make this? What have I made? Its subject and effectiveness still left in question to me and the current audience watching. When I am going to publish it, Sunday this week at 3 p.m, like I always do, yet another example of how similar this is to all of my other videos. Where is this going to? Where is this video going to go to? YouTube, presumably. But as I had already stated, its subject matter is completely pointless in the amount of videos of this said subject matter. Why am I making this? Why? These are all the topics of questions Christopher Nolan's sci-fi action film Tenet should have answered. And it is in these questions that lie what Tenet failed to do.